Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick back once again to talk about some of the new content we're seeing for X-Wing 2nd Edition. And today, rather than go through another big list of stuff we saw, I will do that again soon because we have a bunch of upgrade cards revealed from the UK Gaming Expo. But I wanted to talk about one in particular, the Gunner card Luke Skywalker. And I've been wanting to make this video for a little while now, but I just wanted to make sure that we had the correct English translation because this was previously revealed in another language and I just wanted to double check we had the right wording on this card, and the recent spoilers from the UK Gaming Expo did confirm that this is what we thought it was going to be. Luke Skywalker right here in front of us is quite a contentious subject on the FFG forums, Reddit, and even on my Facebook page. The reason I'm making this video is because I too share the concerns that a lot of people are voicing over this card, and I shared it on my Facebook page and a lot of you guys seem to agree with me. In fact, it seems to be pretty much 50-50. Most people are saying, oh, this is a problem, or oh, this is fine for these reasons. And basically every forum out there that's discussing it seems to mirror these same arguments. So the video we have here is meant to be kind of a discussion starter. Please, in the comments below, tell me what you think of this card. Tell me what you think of my points, whether you agree or disagree, but I'm basically going to do the fors and against for this card. Well, basically the fors and against this card being problematic, I guess is the best way to put it. And just for a little bit of context, I'll explain what's going on here, because in X-Wing 2nd Edition, you don't operate turrets the same way you did in first editions. Turrets can no longer just shoot anywhere outside your firing arc in 360 degrees. Now turrets have to be pointed. There is a rotate firing arc symbol on any ship that has a turret or any turret upgrade card, meaning that ship has to manually aim the turret, which means that ships with lower initiative are going to have a harder time hitting ships with a higher initiative because they have to kind of guess where they're going to be. Ships with higher initiative can use actions like boost, barrel roll, and slam to get out of those indicators and dodge turrets. Now, turrets can be properly dodged despite the fact you still might be in range of that ship. And what Luke is doing is giving the users of turrets the ability to re-aim the turret after everything on the board state has moved. Specifically things like Suntafel, Fen Rao, all those kind of ships that in the new version of the game just want to outright dodge turrets. There is now a tool in the turret user's utility box to aim the turret at them with what we call perfect information. After everything has moved, you get to move the turret in response. And with that in mind, let's start looking at some of these arguments. Let's start off with the arguments that Luke Skywalker is too problematic. We'll start off with the negative comments first and end on the more positive notes. First point, Luke fundamentally contradicts the spirit of FFG's approach to arc dodging and initiative. And this is a point that I think has got most people concerned looking at Luke Skywalker. The idea is we simply do not have veteran instincts, there's no more adaptability in the game, there's no way to increase your initiative. And initiative is a very, very powerful thing. If you, the player, have invested in a ship like, say, Suntafel, Vader, Fen Rao, or even Initiative 5 ships like Luke Skywalker or the Inquisitor, the theory moving forward is that you should have better opportunities to arc dodge turrets, or arc dodge any arc for that matter. And Luke Skywalker pretty much just entirely negates that. And that is a bit of a problem. The simple fact of the matter is there are no more toolbox utility cards that offer you options when your ship is getting shot outside your opponent's firing arc. There is no way to convert blank green dice to evades anymore. Previously, we had cards like Auto Thrusters and Emperor Palpatine. And what those cards offered certain ships a way to leverage an advantage over opponent, even if they were shooting at you with turrets. Despite the fact turrets were still very oppressive in first edition, and that's why they've changed them to the way they're going to be moving forward, and in turn they can also get rid of auto thrusters, and they can also change the way Palp works. Palp can now still give you better quality across all the dice, across all your ships, but it only works on focus results, because that is how force tokens work. The concept that's gone into auto thrusters has sort of been shifted over to this new card Afterburners, and Afterburners is a great toolbox way of small ships, which includes all aces, of getting free boost actions. It's only twice a game, but in my eyes this is still very potent, and twice a game is likely all you're going to need unless it goes really long. And basically what this design direction is trying to tell us is, look, we're going to give you better tools to dodge these turrets, but once you get caught in them, you're not going to get any free evades because you're fighting against turrets anymore. You're basically going to have to try and dodge them if you're going to run ace platforms. The second point is just commenting on the overall efficiency of Luke. There is an argument that he simply is too efficient. And I can understand what's going on here. The action economy built into Luke is fantastic. Even if it's one specific action, rotating your arc every single turn for free seems really, really good. Even if you don't want to rotate your arc, you still get that force token, which means if you're flying well, you still get another added benefit. Now sure, one force token that can't be used outside of just converting a single focus isn't a great benefit, but it does give Luke an extra little bit of efficiency. It also means that your turret platform's running very efficiently. If you're running, say, a Falcon or a YT-2400, you're going to get those shots off consistently, and those 3 or 4 red dice are always going to be quite nice. If you've got Luke in a Y-Wing, for example, with an ion cannon turret, it means you're going to get shots with that consistently, and against aces, those ion tokens are really, really going to hurt. And the final argument I want to make in favour of Luke being too problematic is, in my opinion, the most concerning one, and that is the idea that Luke risks locking out certain archetypes, most notably aces, out of the game. The goal of a second edition should be to try and start everything off on an even keel as best as possible. And I think overall Luke does somewhat fly in the face of that. Now don't get me wrong, the lack of swarms in first edition is a bit of a problem right now. Right now in first edition, just sort of really efficient mid-ranges type ships and aces are doing quite well. And we just don't see TIE swarms anymore. And I think there is a chance that Luke is trying to push that a bit, but nevertheless it is a tool which left unchecked will keep a certain type of archetype under his boot heel. I firmly believe that Luke is going to be pretty average against swarmers, but fantastic against aces, because you want to make sure you can get your shots against aces so they can be taken out quickly before the late game, where they can slowly grind away and defeat your list. And now I want to talk about some arguments that are in favour of Luke being an okay and fair card moving in second edition. The first point is Luke is an iconic character in Star Wars canon and should have a potent ability, and I completely agree with this. Luke in first edition was kind of like a super gunner, in that he gave you the shot like the old gunner did, but he gave you another shot with modifications. And that just simply wasn't worth the extra points it was to invest in him. Pure and simple. And having a Luke in second edition with a more potent ability is good. And he was very expensive in first edition. In fact, I think he was the second highest costing crew card behind Palpatine, and nowhere near as effective. And he definitely wasn't as effective as several crew that were much cheaper than him. And I think moving in second edition, he will continue to be expensive. I mean, this ability does look fantastic, no doubt about that. And if there's an expensive card that has a good relevant ability, I think this is fair enough. The second point in favour of Luke is relating back to one of the points I made previously, is whilst he is very efficient, one of the biggest issues with Luke in terms of making it into top tier lists is his power level. Because if we have a look at all the gunners available that we've seen so far, we can see that Luke arguably doesn't have a very high power threshold, while a lot of these other ones do. Several of these gunner cards, in fact most of these gunner cards, offer the ability to take 2 shots. Whether that be like Bosk that gives you the ability, like the old gunner card, to take a second shot if you missed, or just take a second shot outright like Veteran Tail Gunner or Veteran Turret Gunner. And in my eyes, this is the biggest reason why I'm not too concerned about Luke, because overall meta top tier lists in X-Wing are about pushing as much power out as possible. And sure, while Luke's super efficient, he makes sure that you get shot. One of the fundamental things about strategizing in X-Wing is making sure you shoot your opponent's ships more than they shoot yours. Sometimes it is just that simple, and denying yourself the ability to get 2 shots is a big deal. In fact, if you have a look here at the card Bistan, also on the Rebel faction, you have the ability to shoot out the same arc, which just seems really, really crazy. I look to pilots like Lando Calrissian, for example, one of the pilots I commented on in the previous reveal video that looks like he's going to have a lot more power than his first edition self. Fair enough, his first edition card was pretty useless. If we have a look at a Lando build that say includes Bistan and Nien Nunb, for example, we suddenly have a really efficient ship that can move his arc very easily because of his pilot ability. After you execute a green maneuver, which in the case of this build is 1, 2, 3 speed, straights or banks, which is a lot of the maneuvers, he himself can take an action for free, which could be rotate the arc. In fact, you could just think of this as a ship that's going to get a lot of free rotations, but in a pinch you can use those actions for different things on the Falcon or indeed other ships. This is a great versatile build, and if you manage to line up multiples of your opponent's ships, which you should be able to do with this build because you have a relatively high initiative and a lot of flexibility with moving that arc, you can take 2 separate shots against your opponent. Now, I don't know if this list is going to be top tier or meta defining, but right off the bat I look at this and think, yeah, Luke's great, but look at the amount of firepower you can actually get out of these platforms. If we jump over to say the YT2400, that has a 4 red dice attack, and you might say to yourself, well, I want to make sure that 4 red dice attack hits. My response to that is, I want to make sure I shoot twice with those 4 red dice. That seems way more powerful. And this is the key thing. It really goes to show you, if you look at the rest of these gunner cards, how valuable the slot is and how expensive it's going to be. I can't see Luke being any cheaper than these other options. And if you consider the effect of these other options on the game, the ability to take more than one shot a turn was very sought after in first edition. And the fact of the matter is there are now generic cards. There are even unique cards that work on many different platforms. So turreted ships can now take multiple attacks. That's just a common thing in the game of X-Wing now. And I don't know if improving the equality of just one of your shots is enough to overcome that power level. Which leads me on to my next point, which talks about the concept behind Luke. And that's the idea that he's designed in such a way to be training wheels for the newer players that are trying to work out how to use turrets. Especially new players that are just entering into the game around about now in first edition and having to go over to second edition and basically relearn all these rules when they don't really have a super strong grasp on the first edition rules. Getting used to the new way turrets fire can be quite challenging. It's like teaching someone how to use the Shadowcaster for the first time. It's something you do have to get used to. And Luke offers what we would call training wheels for these newer players, where you can consistently get your shots. And if that is indeed the design behind Luke, it means he's not going to be super efficient. He's going to be quite costly. And if this is the idea going forward, and if he is that costly, he probably just simply can't make it into meta lists. For that simple reason, I don't think you're going to be able to fit him on, say, a Dash Corrin build. I think it's just going to be too pricey, or you're going to have to sacrifice him too much elsewhere in that build for it to be effective. Which leads me on to the last point I want to make. The fact of the matter is, Luke is always subject to the points costing in the app, and the app is a really big thing in 2nd edition X-Wing. The app is what decides what ships get certain upgrade slots and how much they cost. Wow, imagine if we had that during the time of Dengaroo, for example. Imagine if we had that now to control Miranda Nim build or Ghost Fen builds. We'd be able to neuter them like that without the need for excessive ever-growing FAQs. The fact of the matter is, yes, if Luke does eventually become one of these parasitic cards that lock out certain archetypes and force players to fly really unfair things just to compete, it can be costed out. If Luke ends up breaking a certain platform, we can limit what that platform can take. I mean, that's not ideal, but it is an option. And really, that's what we're most concerned about. What's the best way to break Luke, and is that going to be too powerful meta-wise? These things can be fixed, and that's a really good thing. And I think in closing, that's really what I'm thinking moving forward. I don't think probably Luke is going to be a problem, but I do have one question for FFG. Why risk it? Why risk doing something that, while maybe not overly powerful, does seem to go against the grain of the ethos of X-Wing 2nd edition? Why not make Luke work, say, during the system phase? A card that you could make a lot cheaper and still offer a decent amount of efficiency and would still be a perfectly playable card. Why not make it after you activate your ship, which means that Luke can directly give your ship a bit more action economy and directly play off that ship's initiative, something that would really play into the ethos of X-Wing 2nd edition. I don't think it's going to be a big problem, but why risk it? And that's the final point I want to make. Again, guys, in the comment section, what do you think of Luke moving forward? Do you think it's going to be a big problem, or do you think it'll be just fine? In the meantime, guys, stay tuned. We will go through the rest of these upgrades that were spoiled over the weekend. For now, like and subscribe, like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, and I will catch you guys later.